Today I'll be going over some videos we are watching for my Speech 1315 class by the communication coach Alex Lyon. So jumping straight in, I'm going to give you a brief overview of a video we discussed last week, which is how to start a speech, also known as 5 ways to start with a bang. Number 1 is going to be to tell a concise story. This story should be brief, should still include a beginning, middle, and end, and tie back to your overall message. Number 2 is going to be to ask some key questions. So these should be guided or prompted questions that again relate to the topic that you're going to be discussing in your speech. Number 3 is going to be to discuss a powerful quotation. So this is something that someone has previously said that still again applies to the speech or your main points in your speech that day. Number 4 is going to be share an interesting fact or stat. So this should be information from a reputable source. Information that someone that is professional or known in that field has already expanded upon. Number 5 is going to be to use a visual illustration. So it should just be something, again, common thing tying back into what you'll be talking about for the day, and is also a further explanation or further demonstration of what your main points will be. We did review this video in my past review here regarding Speech 1315, but again, it is a very great video if you're kind of new to speech and speaking and just trying to kind of find a solid foundation or kind of ways to spice up and make your message or speech a little bit more relatable. The next video we're going to talk about is going to be how to organize a speech or presentation. So he gives us this, Alex Lyon breaks down this concept into 3, which is introduction, body, and conclusion. So breaking more into the introduction, it should be about 5 to 10% of your presentation, or 1 minute. You need to follow the funnel philosophy, which basically means you start with a general idea or concept and narrow it down to what you'll be specifically speaking about or presenting in your presentation. You should also have 5 main parts to this introduction, which should be the attention grabber. So something that stops the audience in their tracks, grabs their attention, and makes them ready to listen and kind of engage in what you're ready to present them. Number 2, audience relevance or benefits. How does this speech or this presentation pertain to this audience? How are they what are they going to do with this information once this is over? How is this going to be received or receptive by your audience? Number 3 should be speaker's credibility. Your experience, your research, how you are in the position to talk about this topic. Number 4, thesis or main point. What you will be talking about, what the main point of your presentation will be about. And lastly, number 5, which is a preview or a concise roadmap of what your presentation is set to look like. So that all should be included in your introduction, and it's just kind of basically a general attention grabber, a general review, and kind of a guidance for what the rest, the body, and the conclusion should consist of for your presentation. The next part of the speech organizing is going to be body. So the body, you basically want to go straight into what your first point was, which is something you're going to mention in your introduction, in your preview, or in your roadmap. You're going to go straight into what your point is. The body is one of the most important parts because it is about 85% of your presentation. So it's about what you're going to be talking about. 85 minutes in this situation can equate to about 8 or so minutes. You need to make sure that in your body you're addressing 3 main concise points. So these could be what's going to be supporting your argument or a part of your arguments. These should be your main arguments. And on top of these 3 main points, you also want to make sure that you incorporate concise information and transition between these points so that the audience is able to clearly follow your train of thought and clearly go through and analyze each point with you. The last one for the body is going to be to organize your points logically. So kind of going back to what I'm saying, you can do a problem, a solution, a benefit, a step 1, 2, and 3. Just anything that keeps the audience's mind or thought process flowing in a chronological order. The last thing for this video that Alex Lyon discussed is going to be conclusion. So your conclusion should be the last 5 to 10% of your presentation. You want to make sure in the conclusion, although you are going to tie everything back to what the main point of the presentation is, you do want to also make sure to include a clear ending to this presentation. So in conclusion, to sum things up, some type of ending to kind of signal to your audience that you're getting ready to close your arguments. Again, as I just previously mentioned, the conclusion should reinforce your arguments. So you should go back and remember what you said in your introduction, review the topics that you further expanded on in your body, and tie them all back to your conclusion. And the last thing that he definitely praised in his video is going to be a clincher. This should be an echo of your message, an echo of what you want the audience to take away. This should be a complete circle of what your main message is. So I did thoroughly enjoy the How to Organize Your Speech video by Alex Lyon. It gave me pointers to kind of use, even going forward in this direction. I feel using these tools and applying them automatically, I was able to kind of keep this video from being so much rambling and filler words as in my previous video, and I was a little bit more structured on how to organize this one. So I definitely feel like friends, family, anyone in professional settings, anyone in school settings can definitely utilize that video, even not even only pertaining to speech, but also to writing. That's a really good tip and really good tools to use even in your writing going forward. So continuing on, the next video we're going to talk about is body language for a presentation. So the number one thing he mentions is going to be eye contact and a smile. So you should always strive to make eye contact at least 99% of the time. You don't want to focus on one person. However, he likes to use this phrase, one thought, one look. So as you are thinking on a thought or going over a topic, you look at one person. Once you're done with that, you kind of move through the next. This just kind of keeps you from pacing and doing other things that are probably not the best when it comes to your posture. One thing that he advised against was looking at the floor, using notes, or relying on slides, or looking over the audience. So the number one first tip that he recommended is eye contact and smile. The next two topics we're going to go and talking about is going to be posture and gestures. So you want to make sure that you stand with your feet shoulder width apart, which is something we do normally out of just relaxation. But when we get nervous, we tend to not do that. So that's something you want to focus on is standing with your feet shoulder width apart. Loosely clasp your hands kind of at your belt level. No swaying, pacing, shuffling, or crossing your legs, or locking your knees. He did mention something interesting in the video about how often when people are nervous, if they lock their knees, they actually can pass out. So that was a very helpful tool. Things like no hands in your pocket, no playing with your hair, kind of things like that that would distract the audience from your message. Number 3, and the final one he mentioned in this video, is going to be to pause and nod after key ideas. So something that I love that he said in this video was that pausing is persuasive and nodding is contagious or reassuring. So by pausing, you give the audience time to kind of think about what you're saying, understand and digest the point you're making, and by nodding, those that agree can reassure you that they agree. So that was something I found very interesting in this video. I did truly enjoy this video, mainly because it made me more self-aware of how minimal gestures can be perceived by the audience. And I was really, really motivated by the nodding, because I didn't think to use that in my own speeches or communication. And I think that saying of that pausing is persuasive and nodding is contagious was something I'll probably take with me throughout life. I feel like anybody can use that, because that is a great way to relate to your audience without verbally hearing from them. It's a great nonverbal gesture, so I truly enjoyed that. The next video we're going to go into is how to practice a speech or a presentation. So he does mention, and he says this in a few videos that we talked about last week, but how you practice directly impacts your performance. So the more you practice, the less likely you are to be tripped up or to run into issues that kind of stomp your entire presentation. So the number one practice he mentioned is practice from an outline. So don't practice from a script, almost word to word, but practice for almost a general outline, something that gives you kind of the main points and what you're planning to discuss, and you kind of run through that using what you know, your knowledge, versus an actual physical script. The number 2 practice he's going to talk about is spread out practice sessions over times. So he did mention in our previous videos that we discussed last week that you should practice at least 10 times. In this video, he dives in even a little further, saying that you should practice 3 days up to your presentation, at least 3 times for those 3 days. And we'll go further into that here in a minute with discussing our next video. But again, 10 times is the goal, the idea. You don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to underdo it at the same time. The number 3 practice he mentions in the video is to focus on just 1 or 2 improvements a day. I feel like a lot of us, when we practice, we're aiming for perfect. We're aiming to run through a video perfectly without messing anything up. I know I use that here in Speech 1315. I'm always trying to make sure, since we're not allowed to edit, that I'm running through everything perfectly. But in reality, you're going to always have something that you can improve on. So each of those 3 days that you're going through your script, always make sure that you're collecting 1 or 2 things that you can improve on at a time. It's a slow and steady race. So as long as you're still sticking to your central idea, getting your message across clearly, only focus on 1 or 2 improvements a day. Number 4 is going to keep your practice sessions realistic. So kind of like I was saying, you're not going to get everything perfect the first time and all the way through on 1 try. It's okay to keep them realistic. And also, another thing too with keeping them realistic, expect the unexpected. Practice your speech as if technology has a failure. Practice your speech as if there's a phone going off or some distraction that would keep you from your typical practice environments. Something he mentioned in the video that I think I'll also take with me is that he gives himself distractions on purpose so that he can always expect the unexpected. And I really feel like that is another amazing tip that he's kind of given us in this video. And the last and number 5 tip that he gives us is going to be to visualize the first and last 30 seconds of your speech. And this is something that he said also in a previous video that we discussed in our last Speech 1315 video. This is a really helpful tool. I loved it then, still love it now. I think picturing yourself succeeding is like a first step to succeeding. So I greatly appreciate that step. You want to picture yourself opening, picture yourself closing, picturing the audience reacting, picturing how you are clearly getting through your presentation, how you are catching their attention and leaving them with something to remember. Again, another really great video by Alex Lyon. Tool that you'll be able to utilize in multiple aspects. Friends and family can utilize these tools, and you can also utilize these tools not only in speech and presentations, but writing and sometimes lecturing styles. The next video we're going to go into is going to be how to practice 3 days out. So I don't know if you remember, but previously I mentioned how he recommended that we practice 3 days, at least 3 times in those 3 days. So he goes into this video and breaks down each day of what it should look like. So starting with day 1, it's not day 1, you don't want to concern about how it sounds. You kind of just want to be able to make sure all the big pieces are there, all your central ideas are there, and kind of make sure that your research has been revised and edited to the most important and applicable parts. Then you go, once you're done, you practice your 3 times and you sleep on it. I love that. That was a great tip. Number 2, make the first big cut. So the second day, after you had a chance to sleep on it and let things digest, which is something I felt was a great tip because it's something you can use to apply to multiple things and aspects of life. But once you sleep on it, day 2 is the day you make those big cuts. So you cut out anything that might be rambling, anything that might not be working, anything that might not fit. You want to make sure that that day you also talk through it a few times and then kind of edit as you go to kind of build its performance as you go. Day 2, sleep on it. Wasn't one of his tips that he mentioned, but it's something that you can still apply. Sleep on it. Day number 3, you're going to want to cut out the remaining or another 50% of your presentation. So it should be basically down to that rough outline that we mentioned in a little bit earlier in our video here today, that you want to go off of an outline. So now you should be down to the skin and bones, that outline. You should have 1 single space note card for each 1 minute of the speech, and this go around should be like a dress rehearsal. So this should be more of a polished performance, more of kind of what it actually will end up being. Limited to no editing, pretty much only last minute changes, and you should just be solidifying the foundation. Next, we're going to go into the day of your presentation. So I know something I'm very guilty of that he kind of pointed a kind of straight against in this video was practicing super hard the day of. You don't want to do that. The day of, you practice the conclusion, you practice the introduction. Anything else in between there that doesn't work, you can always feel free to go back and go through that, of course, to make sure those moving parts are connecting. But you want to keep it very simple. Don't overbeat yourself on the stuff that you do know, because that's when you're more likely to make mistakes. And don't try to cram or fit everything in between these 24 to 48 hours. Make sure that you spread it out and still utilize your maximum time. So again, I really love this video. The sleep on it was something that I kind of didn't even think about. I always try to put out a finished work and then meditate on that finished work and then execute that finished work. But the sleeping on it and waking up and realizing that something doesn't work is inevitably something that happens to all of us. Even when writing, sometimes I write some things and I go back and read it and it didn't work on paper as well as it worked in my mind. So I love the sleep on it aspect. It's something I feel like I would recommend to all my friends, family, anyone out there listening. Always sleep on something. Give it time to soak in and absorb. It's kind of one of the interesting wonders of the mind. The more we absorb things, the more we learn and grow as people. So the next video we're going to go into is going to be how to open and close a presentation. So the introduction and the conclusion are basically essentially the first and the last things you do. The first time the audience meets you, and in some cases the last thing they hear from you. So he does dive deeper into that funnel philosophy here, that starting general and narrowing in onto one topic. So we're going to be talking about introduction here first. So for the introduction, again, as we mentioned earlier in this video, you want to make sure that you have an attention grabber. This, going back to our previous videos, can be any of the, or in our opening video, can be any of the ideas mentioned in how to start a presentation. So that could be asking a question, telling a story, using facts and stats, visual representations, kind of anything that you're using to kind of further your message in this situation. Number 2 is going to be the audience relevance or benefits. How does the audience, why this audience? Why should this audience absorb this? What do you expect this audience to take away from this? If you were in the audience, what do you expect to gain from this presentation? Why listen to this speaker? You know? So number 3 is going to be to establish your personal credibility, which he describes as why you. So this should be a brief description of your experience, your research, why you have been selected to talk about this, why you feel passionate about this, why is this a part of your message. Number 4 is going to be the thesis statement, which is your main idea. This is kind of what your presentation or your speech is about. It should be concise, so it should be very brief, and it should boil down your themes. It should still be powerful and memorable, but you don't want it to tell your whole presentation. You don't want it to be wordy, lengthy, or kind of a time to overshare. Number 5 is going to be, and the last for introduction, is going to be a brief preview of your main points. So still sticking on to the idea of your themes. These are very brief. He even broke these down as being one word, if at all possible. They should not go into any detail, just be very straight to the point points. So next, going into that, keep talking about the same video, we're going to go into talking about conclusion. So the number 1 conclusion, and we mentioned this in his previous video, so this is a continued tip that he shares, but it's basically going to be to signal the end. So as I gave you examples before, in closing, in conclusion, in summary, it just needs to be a clear signal to the audience that you are ending, you are wrapping up your presentations, you are concluding your speech, whatever the situation may be. Another tip that he gave for conclusions is going to be to reinforce your thesis. So just like we had put all that effort and work into our thesis for the introduction, you want to roll that back, circle it back, and bring it into your conclusion. This should be your last chance to kind of emphasize your main points and what you want them to take away. It should be a brief recap, but still, again, tie the whole presentation together. Number 3, call to action. What do you want from the audience? Are you wanting them to do something? Are you wanting them to be more mindful of something? What do you want from the audience? A tip he gave here that I feel is a very keen takeaway to this video, because I'm kind of guilty of it myself, is so the next time you see, I love that tip, because I have ended speeches with, the next time you see this, act like this. And he says that is kind of actually a signal that the closer is not as strong as it should be. So I feel like that was a key takeaway from this video. Number 4, again, going into that clitter or that clothing. This should be something jaw-dropping. This should be something that helps the audience remember you and your message. This should be a closer, another way to tie everything back together. If you were telling a story in the beginning, this could be a very cute and fun way, or a very direct and memorable way to end your speech as well, by bringing it back and tying it into the end. It should just be something that makes your message your message. So that was our last video that we'll be reviewing today. And again, I genuinely do love Alex Lyon, the communication coach. I've actually even been watching him on my own time. So I do thoroughly enjoy the tips he's provided in those videos. I am growing by still learning through Speech 1315 and continuing my study with these videos. So in conclusion, my name is Patricia Dunn, and that will be my review today for Speech 1315 review videos from the communication coach Alex Lyon. Thank you and have a great day.